Hi, my name is Ruth.
And my name is Chris.
You must be pretty excited to talk directly with astronauts on the International Space Station today. While we're waiting for the space station to come over your portion of the sky, let's talk a little bit about how it's going to happen. Of course, Mission Control is in contact with astronauts all the time, using a big radio with lots of fancy equipment.
However, we're going to be using something very different today. We are going to use ham or amateur radio to talk directly to the International Space Station.
When most people hear the word radio, they think of a music radio station, but it's so much more than that. Radio actually refers to the unseen energy that transmits all sorts of signals using electromagnetic waves. At first, people learned how to send signals like Morse code, and then they discovered that you can send so much more, like data, computer signals, and even TV.
Maybe you don't realize it, but you use radio every day. Maybe you watched the TV this morning, or you texted your friends, or maybe even you check social media like Twitter or Instagram.
Let's travel back to space for a minute. Since the beginning of the space age, humans have sent many spacecraft out into the universe. These range from the Hubble Space Telescope orbiting the Earth daily, and the Curiosity rover exploring Mars. We've even sent a long-distance messenger, the Voyager 1, who has traveled outside of our solar system.
Whether it's capturing a great picture of a far-off galaxy or conducting experiments on the space station, radio has to do with all of these. And today, you're going to be using ham radio. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is ham radio?
Amateur or ham radio is a service and a hobby where operators can talk with people around their neighborhoods, their cities, their country, and even around the world. Amateur radio operators require a radio license from the government. They're not that hard to get. I have one. My call sign is KM4LAO.
And mine is KD8YVJ. Our call signs are a way of identifying who we are to other operators. This lets everyone know that we have the proper license to using the radios.
As amateur radio operators, or hams as we are often called, we can talk with others about basically whatever we want, often science or some new radio gadget that we are interested in.
Let's focus back to the space station and your contact today. Many of the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the space station are licensed ham radio operators. That's why your operators today can contact them. The people here, as well as the astronauts, are licensed to talk to each other, and you are allowed to talk over to their radio.
For our conversation today, we'll need an amateur radio station on the ground, either in this location or somewhere else around the world. We'll also need a radio in the space station.
IK1SLD, IK1SLD.
You can hear the calls coming. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station, over.
On the space station, the radio transceiver is connected to an amateur radio antenna mounted on the outside. One of these antennas will be used today during our contact.
For our side of the contact, we need a good-sized antenna, a signal amplifier, something to make our signal stronger, and a rotator for turning our antenna. We have to keep our antenna pointed right at the International Space Station. And remember, it's moving across the sky and fast.
To aim the antenna properly, we need to track the path of the space station exactly. NASA uses complex systems to track the path of the space station and other orbiting objects.
The satellite tracking program we are using works out a complicated set of mathematics to provide the orbital location of the space station moment by moment as it moves through space. This information is sent into the computer that controls the antenna rotator, which moves the antenna to follow the space station. Maybe some of you have seen or worked with robotics. That's pretty cool stuff. And just like you can program a robot where to go, what to do, and how to get there, you can also program a computer to tell an antenna how to track the space station across the sky.
You know, it took a lot of planning to get this contact. Several weeks ago, the ARISS operations team had to figure out when the space station's orbit would pass over this location. Then, they had to talk with the planners at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The crew's time is pretty full, so they were able to find a time that could work for the crew members' schedules. Once they found times that would work both in space and here on the ground, the host organized this contact. And in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing and talking to the astronauts.
Well, it's almost time for your contact. It will be exciting, so good luck with it.
NA1SS, this is N2SJ, over.
NA2SJ from NA1SS for scheduled contact.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim Peake and welcome aboard the International Space Station, where we're orbiting Earth 16 times every day. One of the most rewarding activities that some astronauts undertake on orbit is to talk to schools using the space station's ham radio. Now these are events that are planned by ARISS, which is a worldwide group of amateur radio volunteers who are dedicated to introducing young people and students to science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Now this is the equipment here in the Columbus laboratory, which consists of a handheld radio, a headset, and we also have a ham video unit. Now as the International Space Station orbits above your location, a radio link is established between the ISS and your school. Now because we're travelling at nearly 18,000 miles per hour, which is an incredible 25 times the speed of sound, we usually get about 9 or 10 minutes of good radio contact before losing the signal. So about 5 minutes before the scheduled start time of the contact, I come into the Columbus laboratory and configure the radio so that I'm on the correct channel. And sometimes I'll set up the ham video too. Just before the predicted time, I'll begin to start calling the school using the standard amateur radio calling techniques. For example, if the call sign of your school was GB4 Fun, I would say Golf Bravo 4, Foxtrot Uniform November. This is Golf Bravo 1 Sierra Sierra, listening and standing by. Now at your school, the radio operator will be listening for my call, but may also transmit and try to call me as well. You'll probably have a much more powerful transmitter on the ground than we have up here on board, so I'm likely to hear you before you hear me. Then, once we can hear each other, then comes the best bit, which is actually talking to the students and answering the questions. Once I've answered all the questions, we use the remaining time to say goodbye to each other and end the connection. I'll then spend a few minutes configuring the radio back into a rebroadcast mode, and then I'll go back to my day job, which is of course doing science on board the International Space Station. ARISS is a brilliant opportunity for astronauts to talk to school pupils. It's really rewarding to hear how excited the students are when they're talking.
Okay. That's the radio that Andreas will use today.
Okay, ready to start.
All right, Claudio, are we good to go?
Yes.
Okay, ready? All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. This is Brian Jackson, Victor Echo 6, Juliet Bravo, Juliet, coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'll be your amateur radio moderator for today.
Okay.
Through the help of amateur radio volunteers and the crew on the International Space Station, we will hope to soon establish ham radio contact with the ISS as it flies more than 350 kilometers above the Earth towards Italy. This is all accomplished thanks to ARISS, amateur radio on the International Space Station. Right now, the ISS is currently flying over the Atlantic Ocean on a southwest to northeast heading, whizzing along at around 28,000 kilometers an hour. This contact today will be performed using the Amateur Radio Telebridge Network, a worldwide amateur radio ground stations that enable students to contact the ISS. ARISS is a consortium of ham radio volunteers from 9 nations that develop and operate amateur radio on the International Space Station. Some members of ARISS are the American Radio Relay League, the Worldwide AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Corporations, the Canadian Space Agency, the European Space Agency, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and the Russian Federal Space Agency. The amateur radio ground station that will establish contact with the ISS today is India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta in Casale, Monferrato, Italy, operated by Claudio Ariati and his team. Thanks to all of you on the Italian end for your work on our behalf today. We have about 4 minutes until our contact will start. Our contact today is with Andreas Mogensen, Kilo Golf 5 Golf Charlie Zulu, the pilot on SpaceX Crew 7 who will be operating OR4 ISS aboard the International Space Station. Andreas will be speaking with students at New Heights School and Learning Services here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. At this time, I'll ask educational technologist Patricia Ducey to tell us a little bit about New Heights School and Learning Services and the students taking part in our contact today. Go ahead.
New Heights School is located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We are a private school for autistic and neurodivergent students ranging in grade levels from kindergarten to grade 12. We learn in small class sizes of 10 or 11 students with 2 teaching staff in each class and therapists throughout the school. Our neurodivergent brains often allow us to really focus on areas of special interest, and we may become experts in trains, animals, social justice, or Minecraft. We are excited to learn from you, the experts in space.
Great, thanks, Ms. Patricia. Claudia, before the contact begins today, could you please tell us a little bit about IK1SLD, your ham radio station, where you are, and any last-minute instructions on how to handle the conversation today? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Brian, for your presentation. Briefly, our Telebridge station is located in Casale Monferrato Airport, northwest of Italy, 100 kilometers from Turin and Milan. And with me today as operators, we have Alessio, India Uniform 1 Papa Lima Mike, and Fabio, India Kilo 1 Yankee Echo Zulu, member of our team Telebridge. We have a complete automatic system to track ISS, and antenna is already pointing the International Space Station rising in a few minutes. So when T-minus 30 seconds, I'll go to call Andreas aboard the ISS, today operating with Oscar Romeo 4 India Sierra Sierra call sign. And as soon as signal will be loud and clear, we'll invite the student to start with first question. So please, for the student, don't forget to say over, because this is a very important thing to coordinate the conversation between us and the astronaut. So now see the International Space Station approaching to Europe. We have 1 minute and a half to the contact. So microphone back to you, Brian.
Great, thanks, Claudio. To everybody in the audience today, remember that even though we've done this more than 1,000 times, what we're doing on the International Space Station is still somewhat of an experiment. We can never tell the results, either positive or negative, until the experiment is over. Students, like Claudio reminded you, please don't forget to say the word over. In about 45 seconds, the station should be coming up over Italy. So Claudio, I'm going to send it over to you and your team. Good luck today.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, we have 35 seconds. Okay.
When you'll hear what we call white noise, that's that kind of sounds like a static. That's him transmitting, right? When you listen close, we're going to have to listen way deep, kind of what we call deep in the mud, to hear that voice. And then once it starts,
okay, we have the acquisition of signal in this moment, so I'm calling now.
Here we go.
Oscar Romeo 4 India Sierra Sierra, this is India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta Telebridge ground station calling for a scheduled ARISS contact. Do you copy, Andreas? Over. Oscar Romeo 4 India Sierra Sierra, this is India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta Telebridge ground station calling for a scheduled ARISS contact. Do you copy, Andreas? Over.
India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta, this is Oscar Romeo 4 ISS. Welcome to the International Space Station. My name is Andy.
Okay, Oscar Romeo 4 ISS, IK1SLD. Good afternoon, Andy, and good and happy to meet you again from Italy. So your signal is loud and clear now. Are you ready for first question? Over.
I am ready for questions from the students. Over.
Okay, good luck, Canada.
What was it like exiting Earth and boarding the ISS? Over.
It was really exciting to launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It was my first time launching on a Falcon 9 rocket, and it really had a kick. The acceleration was quick And then arriving to the International Space Station was fantastic. Getting back up here for my second mission, I had been looking forward to it for many years, I think about 8 years since my first mission, and it was just a fantastic feeling to come back again. Over.
How do you go to sleep? Over.
Well, we don't have a bed because you wouldn't stay in the bed if you tried to lay down because we're weightless. You would just float out of the bed. So we use sleeping bags instead. So we crawl into our sleeping bag, and then we make sure to tie the sleeping bag to the wall so that we don't float away in the middle of the night. Over.
What's the scariest thing that happened in space? Over.
Well, luckily, I haven't experienced anything particularly scary. We prefer to have as calm and normal days up here as possible. The scariest thing probably is losing things. Things have a tendency to float away. They don't stay in place. You can't put your iPad down on a table, for example. So you have to always make sure you know where things are. Otherwise, they'll float away, and you'll have a hard time finding them again. Over.
When was the last time you were in Earth? Over.
Well, I launched with my crewmates on August 26th, so that's almost 3 months ago now, which also means that we're about halfway through our 6-month-long mission, and if everything goes according to plan, we'll be back on Earth at the end of February. Over.
What kind of food do you eat in space? Over.
Well, one thing we don't have up here is a kitchen, so we can't make fresh food. So all the food we eat is prepared on Earth and packaged for us so that it's ready to eat. And either it comes in pouches that we can heat in a little oven, or it's dehydrated and it comes in little bags that we can fill with water, sort of like camping food. Over.
What kind of experiments do you perform? Over.
That's a good question. We perform many different types of experiments. It can be experiments in physics, chemistry, biology, human physiology, even earth science. I'm doing one experiment where I take pictures of giant lightning strikes out of our window. These are lightning strikes that shoot upwards out towards space. And then we have lots of experiments where we're the subjects ourselves. So we take blood samples, we take saliva samples, urine samples to see what effects spaceflight have on our human bodies. Over.
What is the strangest thing you've ever seen in space? Over.
I don't know if it was the strangest thing, but one of the coolest things I've seen happened about a month ago. I was looking out of the window and I saw a shooting star from above. So I saw a meteorite fly past below the space station and re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, so it lit up just like a shooting star. That was pretty cool to see.
Did it blast off?
How do you go outside of the ISS without floating way over?
Well, that is a risk when you go on a spacewalk, and that's why we're always attached to the space station with a tether. We have a long safety tether that keeps us attached. But in case that should break or somehow become detached from the space station, we also have, for emergency, a small jetpack that we can activate. It's not a big jetpack, so we can't really fly around outside the space station, but it's hopefully just enough to get us back to the space station if we float away. Over.
How much power does the ISS use every day? Over.
Now that's a good question, and I should probably know the answer, but I don't. What I can tell you, though, is that all of our power comes from our giant solar arrays, which collect sunlight and convert that sunlight into electricity. So everything we use in terms of power, electricity, comes from sunlight. Something interesting, those solar panels are now 15, 20 years old, and so we're in the process of upgrading them with newer technology, which means that we're getting new solar panels put up outside so that we get even more power in the future. Over.
What is the longest spacewalk you have done? Over.
Unfortunately, I haven't done a spacewalk yet. I was supposed to do one about a month and a half ago, but it got canceled 24 hours before we were heading out of the hatch. I'm hoping to do one later on my mission, maybe in January or February. Over.
Has any space junk threatened the structural integrity of the ISS? Over.
Yes, space is becoming more and more crowded with satellites, and so luckily we have radar systems on ground that monitor the space around us, and if anything is on a collision course with us, then we can change the orbit of the space station by raising it slightly in order to avoid the space junk. But yes, it does happen regularly that we have to change our orbit in order to avoid space junk. Over.
How do you dispose of garbage on the ISS? Over.
Well, when we get cargo vehicles up here, after we've unloaded all of the cargo, we fill them with trash, and then we send them back through the Earth's atmosphere. And some of the cargo vehicles don't have a heat shield, which means that they burn up in the Earth's atmosphere together with all of our trash. Over.
Do you exercise? Over.
Exercise is incredibly important in space. Because we're weightless, we don't use our muscles, we don't use our bones, and so to maintain our fitness and to maintain our bodies, we have to exercise for 2 hours every single day. We have a stationary bicycle, we have a treadmill, and we have a weight exercise machine to do that. Over.
How old do you need to be to go to space? Over.
I don't think that there's an actual limit, but typically, you know, you have to be finished with university, you have to have a few years of job experience before you can apply to be an astronaut, and then it takes usually 3 or 4 years of training before you're ready for your first space flight. So typically most astronauts are in their early or mid-30s when they go on their first mission to space. Over.
Do you watch videos or play online games on ISS, or can you only enjoy board games? Over.
We can watch videos and we can watch movies, TV series. Typically, to make sure that there's no time delay, they send them up to us, and then we can watch them up here. Over.
On behalf of all the students and staff at New Heights, we would like to thank Mr. Brian Jackson and the ARISS program for this exciting and amazing opportunity to communicate with the International Space Station. Thank you.
It was my absolute pleasure, and thank you for all of the excellent questions you had today.
Okay.
On behalf of ARISS, Andy, thanks so much for the contact today. We appreciate taking time out of your schedule. Best of luck to you and your crew, and we look forward to another ARISS contact at another time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, Andreas, very good contact. Ciao, ciao from Italy, and out.
Ciao, and have a good weekend.
Still there? To all involved today here, we just shared a moment in history. Amateur radio station India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta in Casale, Monferrato, Italy, operated by Claudio Ariotti, India Kilo 1 Sierra Lima Delta, contacted Andy Mogensen, KG5GCZ aboard the International Space Station, speaking to students at New Heights School and Learning Services in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. To everybody involved, those here and those in the classrooms, give yourself a huge round of applause. Now for the international volunteer team of ARISS, including the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporations around the world, the American Radio Relay League, the CSA, ESA, JAXA, NASA, and Roscosmos. This is Brian Jackson sending my best wishes to you in amateur radio terms. 7-3 from BE6JBJ, and we are cleared. Good job, New Heights.
Okay, thank you, Brian. If you copy me now. Okay, now you unmuted now. You okay?
That was good. That was fantastic audio. Thank you. That was amazing audio right through to the end. I thought we lost him there towards the end, but thank you to you and your team for all your work this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Brian, to you. Thank you to all the people involved and students from Alessio, Fabio, and for me, and all the team in Casale Monferrato. Ciao, ciao. At the next contact, to the next contact. Ciao.
Thank you again. Good job, New Heights. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Amazing. Good job. Just think about it. You seriously, you just talked to an astronaut from space. There are not very many people on the planet that can say that exact same thing. Good job, everybody. Yeah, no, it's like instant. Instant.
Kristen, can I, I'm going to stand right here.